right. Hello and welcome once again to No Backstage, No Studio's online Skillshare interviews featuring experts and veterans of the arts and entertainment industry. Our guest today is literary manager Alec Ring. Alec is a manager at Cinetic Media, whose primary focus is writers and directors. He's a key member of any filmmaker's team, since it is he who helps drive that filmmaker's career forward. Alec's role is to help advise his clients about which projects to pursue, make introductions and connections within the industry, and even help set up specific projects. He has a great client roster. We were just talking about it a little bit before starting today. His roster includes filmmakers such as Sundance Award winner Rod Elsmari of Dunya's Day, the writing duo of James and Alan Batchelor, who wrote Uncanny Annie, Hannah Peterson, who's an Emmy-nominated director of Shook, Diana Peralta of De La Mio, and he's also on the team of Josh Lieb, who does The Daily Show, Tonight Show, Quality Land, John Hawk, who wrote Through the Fire, Off the Res, and Emirati filmmaker Majid El Ansari, who wrote Zinzara, Rattle the Cage. Alec was previously at CAA, that's where he got his start. He's at Cinetic now, and he's based out of New York. Moderating today's discussion will be the wonderful Suzanne Jerva. Suzanne is a partner and producer at 371 Productions, which incidentally is a tenant of No Studios. They have their home offices here. Previously, she created the research department at DreamWorks SKG and was a feature film development executive, supervising many Academy Award nominated and winning films, including Saving Private Ryan, Amistad, Minority Report, Gladiator, Prince of Egypt, Lincoln, and others. A small list. An award-winning filmmaker in her own right, her work has been seen on the Weather Channel, NBC News, PBS, MTV, Fox, BBC, Showtime, and at the Library of Congress. Her narrative and documentary films have screened at over 50 film festivals around the world. Later on during the session, Suzanne will welcome in No Studios members Z. James, Max Rissman, and Megan Higley, who have prepared some questions for Alec. So Alec and Suzanne, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. The floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you, Matthew. Thank you, No Studios. And thank you for everybody who's on this. What is this called? Our little bubble. Let's just call it our bubble world.
Totally. No, thank you. Yeah. I feel the same, and thank you, Suzanne. I feel like I said this to you yesterday, but I feel like I should be the one interviewing you a little bit. I mean, that list of films is incredible.
Yeah, they were fun. But let's talk about you. And so I'm going to start off with this question, because this is a question that people have asked me right away when they heard about this. What is a literary manager? What do you do?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the term literary just refers to the fact that I work with writers and directors. I think, by no means is someone who is working in representation, right, necessarily limited to who they are working with, but I'd say that is kind of my specialization. And I think Matt did a great job of kind of, some of the nuts and bolts, but I'd say I think of myself as a collaborator and business partner with the people that I am working with, helping them to grow their careers, whether it's finding opportunities for them, open writing assignments, open directing assignments, helping them get original projects off the ground. So whether that be raising money or finding distribution, certainly throughout the development process as well, giving notes, helping find producers and things like that for their projects. And, as someone scales, or if there's some sort of multi-hyphenate client, thinking broadly about what it means to exist in the media ecosystem today, and hopefully facilitate introductions and connections, and allow people to achieve their dreams.
That's great. So what is the difference between a literary manager and a talent manager? Is that the same thing?
So I'd say the day-to-day and like the function of the job can change. Talent primarily refers to working with actors in this instance. So obviously that would also encompass trying to find people roles, and liaising with casting agents and other executives kind of closer to that process of a film or television show or podcast, what have you. that's not exactly who I'm talking to day to day, because we're working maybe closer to the onset of a project, more in its writing, kind of hiring of those elements at an earlier stage. Not to say an actor wouldn't be brought in early in the process, but oftentimes the casting happens a little later. I'd say that's really the primary difference in the designation and the title, and ultimately, who I'm working with versus, say, a talent manager.
Great. And then, so what's the difference between you and an agent?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think you'll probably get a different answer depending on any manager or agent you speak to.
And the day of the week.
Yeah, and the day of the week. There's a lot of overlap in terms of those jobs and kind of the role they serve in someone's life. And obviously, it's always relationship dependent and kind of depends on the needs of any individual client. I think everyone has a different relationship with their manager if they have one, or their agent if they have one, or their entertainment attorney if they have one. So it's always kind of case by case and project by project basis. But the way I kind of like to describe it, I think the premise of a managerial relationship is one that is a bit more long term in scope, and also kind of all encompassing. I use the word business partner and collaborator, not lightly, in that I hope to grow and work with my clients in every endeavor, and think about their careers in as a holistic way as possible. I think not that an agent wouldn't necessarily, but oftentimes I think that relationship is a bit more transactional. An agent, and especially at a large agency, is someone who is collecting and privy to a ton of information because of the wide range of clients they may be working with or that their colleagues are working with, and they're really good at helping people find jobs and negotiating deals. Mm-hmm. They may not always be as involved in the development of original work, or thinking about maybe the core values at the center of a project in the same way as a manager in trying to plot its path forward. So I think that's the difference. It's a nuanced thing. And I think it more has to do with, how agencies as a whole function versus a management firm or an individual manager. But certainly we all work together.
Right. And then, so like the team, so to speak, and then the attorneys come in too. So you are the attorney. Can you structure how that comes into the whole pie?
Yeah, totally. So when I use this term team, it's really to reference maybe the various people a creative person will have around their life, in their life, if they have them at all, to think about, I think primarily protecting their interests in approaching creative endeavors. So that has to do with, either negotiating as well as kind of the integrity of their creative pursuits. And also, facilitating, I think, their growth and, broader connections to the industry. I think you see it's very common, right? As someone's career scales, they often start a production company or start to, their schedule can get incredibly busy, right? As they're back to back with projects and in high demand. And that's something you obviously want to capitalize on in success. And sometimes having, other people in your life, be it a manager, an agent, an entertainment attorney, it allows you to really, specialize in terms of kind of their activities in your life and create, potentially a more like productive workflow surrounding you. So I think that's what team references. And ideally it's a group of people, right, who you like and your work resonates with them, and they're going to hopefully bring you opportunities that resonate with you as well.
So you talked about you work with writers and directors and actors. Anybody you can, and we have a list of your clients that Matthew read up front too. Yeah. Anybody else you'd like to talk about in relationship to how you work with them, like a director? Like, how do you work with them as a manager?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that question is very much tied to the identity of the company I currently work at, called Cinetic. So Cinetic Media is a company born out of kind of independent film scene. We work with a wide range of people on a wide variety of projects, so coming up in the 90s and early 2000s, this was with, at the time, very young creators like Richard Linklater and Todd Haynes and John Hamburg and, people kind of Justin Lin starting out their careers, right? And we were helping them find distribution for their films at markets and festivals like Sundance. So as that work continued and our company grew, we've kind of added different services and ways we interact with creative people. So that means helping them find money for their project, acting as like a financing agent. Certainly management, the team I reside in, we do marketing and publicity for films. So we've led Oscar campaigns and festival campaigns for movies like Moonlight and Parasite. We have a brand-focused unit as well that's in partnership with Rough House Pictures. And most recently, we have a development fund. So that's a way for us in partnership with all three media to actually like invest some money at an early stage in a project and help its development in that capacity, aside from our expertise in some of these other areas. So I feel very lucky to have this infrastructure around me and be able to leverage it in terms of who I work with. And so in that sense, right, at various stages in the life of a project, whether it be a movie or a TV show or a podcast or what have you, we have various strengths and ability to collaborate internally to, make sure the work retains as much integrity as possible, to the creator's vision and has the widest audience as possible. So, that those often yield kind of strategic questions, right? And that's where I think a manager can be really useful in starting to plot a path forward to help a creative person get their project made or, find them a new opportunity. So, for, some of these folks that were mentioned by Matt before, like John Hawk or Josh Lee, whether it be a documentary or a TV show or even someone's book, right? They all kind of take a different life to make sure someone can, make a living from their work, and also making sure that people are seeing it out on the, the widest stage possible and receiving it the way it should be. So, it's the combination of these kind of various departments and ways we interact with the project that really can help it, can help breathe life into it. So an example of the film we're all extremely proud of at Cinetic would be Boyhood, among many, but it's an example I'll list here today. This is a project we also produced. Certainly Richard Linklater is a phenomenal filmmaker, someone we all admire. And, the movie had tremendous success and a very unique production process, as we all know, shot over 12 years, right? So this is one where our collaboration with Rick over time, right, yielded a lot of trust and goodwill and allowed us, to help him put this one together, see it through the production process, and ultimately be part of the Oscar campaign and release of the movie that led to a lot of, wonderful success.
Wow. So what's your day-to-day like? You talked about so many different business pillars in there.
Yeah. Every day is definitely different. I think that's why it's a lot of fun to work with, a diverse range of creators doing a lot of different projects. I would say, a lot of my day is spent on the phone, right? It's making phone calls to producers or other types of executives, or, speaking to my clients and their team, their agents, their attorneys, as I mentioned before, to make sure, people are finding out about their work and their talents, approaching the marketplace with their projects as a whole to try to, put them in a position to be made and make sure everyone's getting paid, and, just making sure groups are communicating effectively, within their teams, across their projects, and really just kind of being a problem solver and someone in the trenches with whatever their, enterprise or endeavor happens to be. I think, Cinetic, certainly coming from like the indie film community and scene, right? We're a creator-driven place. We're all about empowering someone with a vision and saying, let's go figure this out the way you want to do it. And so that obviously comes with certain challenges, and there are disagreements surrounding creative or a deal. And as a manager, it's my job to make sure and try to get everyone on the same page.
Yeah, so you have to be part psychiatrist, part
Yeah.
psychologist, part
Yeah.
accountant, part futurist, right?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes it's definitely putting on your psychologist hat. Other times it's being a little more of a pit bull and asking someone why they screwed this up. But yeah, it's definitely depends on the day for sure, and depends on the project.
Yeah. So thinking about who's on this live stream right now, there's probably a lot of filmmakers. And so if a filmmaker is fortunate enough to get his or her film in a festival like Sundance, South by, do you go to South by to look at films? Like, what festivals do you go to? What do you try to attend to get talent and distribution for films?
Yeah, so we track a lot of festivals, particularly because we are very active as a company as a sales agent. So when you finish a film or in the process of making your film, it can be really helpful to hire a sales agent. Someone can help you navigate finding distribution for your project, and helping you capitalize on all the hard work, right, that you put into making this thing you are so passionate about. So we do that at every major festival. Places like Sundance, South by, Tribeca, Berlin, Cannes, Toronto. So most major markets throughout the year. In terms of my job, which is a bit different than that, as a manager, it becomes about finding new voices, right? So always kind of keeping track of what's being admitted to these festivals, into their development programs, trying to just start conversations with writers and directors and hear more about their ambitions and check out their work, their shorts, things like that. And hopefully find, meaningful people that I can be helpful to and want to collaborate with, and help grow their career if it's the right fit.
Now on the screen right now is, I think you were talking about this earlier. This is a short, and what are you doing with that now?
Yeah, so the guy in that photo is Rad Alzmari, a very talented filmmaker from Saudi Arabia. His film Dunya's Day won the International Narrative Shorts Competition at Sundance in 2019, and was nominated for, wasn't nominated, but we had a little Oscar campaign for the film to try to get shortlisted because it qualified from winning at Sundance. Rod is now kind of adapting this short into a feature, and we'll be working to put together, financing for that project. But this is a great example of someone who, off of the platform of Sundance, we were able to see his film, to connect with him and hear more about his ambitions, and it could be a real value add in terms of structuring and thinking about his career in television and getting his movie off the ground and straddling the growth of the nascent film industry in Saudi, as well as building his career in the States and other places as well. So he's a wonderful example, and I mean the film is beautiful, but he's a wonderful example of how tracking through the festivals can yield to some meaningful relationships.
So when you saw his film and met him, what sparked your interest in him? What are you looking for? So another kind of little tidbit for people who are trying to attract attention from a talent or a literary manager.
Yeah, for sure. So just to take one step back, so having a rep is a choice, right? We are paid a commission, which is money out of your pocketbook in success of your projects. By no means does having a rep secure success in the future. If anything, it's about finding support and maybe a different way to think about your career and your work, and hopefully someone who can be, a trusted ally and collaborate. The thing that compels someone to create is, right, that's in your heart. That's what you're putting forth in your projects. And, you don't need someone to say, okay, for you to do that, right? Continuing to improve your craft and your work, will hopefully yield the results you want and the type of life you want. And perhaps a manager, an agent, or a lawyer can really assist in those endeavors, but by no means does it make it a guarantee. So that said, going into a conversation with the creator, right, aside from just generally being attracted to their work and seeing the artistry of what they've done, I think love to see just tremendous work ethic and passion, and a really unique point of view, and instilling what they're doing with tremendous integrity. I think I love when someone is able to articulate beautifully, right, this marriage of aesthetic and idea behind what they're doing, and then showcasing that through their craft, in what they're putting forth and what they're developing to make. So everyone's different, right? I work with a number of filmmakers making horror films. I love genre projects. I work with people more on the comedy side. Obviously, some people that are a little more auteur, aesthetic, coming out of Sundance, or thinking more, in terms of prestige dramas. And, those all have different audiences and different lives and different processes of people you partner with, but they can all be equally compelling in terms of what they're doing. So, more than anything, right, it's nice to get along and feel aligned with your clients and having those conversations. But in terms of respecting, someone's work and who they are, I think that's, what I'm trying to suss out and feel out in a conversation, especially as, my time is becoming more valuable as my career grows with my clients. I want to make sure someone is going to, be in it and work as hard as I am, and make sure it feels like a good fit.
That's great. And we have a question from the audience, from Mia Fatah, who asked, besides at the film festival level, how else would you recommend that a filmmaker with a voice, what you're talking about is you're looking for a voice. The filmmaker should have a voice, correct? So how else besides the festival level can a filmmaker attract an attention of you or a literary manager?
Yeah, so I guess my advice would be, if you're a writer or director, keep making things, right? Like, there's no reason, you shouldn't feel compelled to continue to develop your ideas and create things, shorts, films, writing scripts, and trying to create, ways for you to put your work out into the world. There's more tools than ever, right, to go about promoting yourself and putting your work out there, or trying to structure a project. I've referenced podcasts a few times now. I like podcasts quite a bit, and right, it's an extremely low budget way to tell an interesting scripted story, and you can film it on a phone in your closet, right, with your friends, and it sounds pretty good. But in terms of some more structured approaches, right, looking at development programs. So, through programs like Film Independent, I'm sure No Studios has some tremendous resources, and facilitate some of those interactions as well. IFP is another wonderful organization. The Sundance Institute. There's lots of other development programs through various film festivals as well. Utilizing, I think, your own network to promote your work and facilitate organic connections and introductions, right? I think we're a community of artists and creators, more than anything, and are constantly in dialogue with each other in terms of our work, and also, what we may want to work on together. So it's great to understand, right, what people are interested in and what they're working on, and how we can find ways to work together. So, and share kind of the work you're doing, right, and start to build this network to, help promote your own work as it starts to scale. And, starts to feel ready to approach the marketplace. And then, I think also just generally, and it goes along with that, is being your own best advocate, right? No one gets to say you have a career or not. No one gets to say this is worthy of making or not. And whether it's through social channels and means of digital distribution, organizations like Short of the Week or No Budge are awesome places to like try to premiere a film and garner some support. There's a lot of worth, right, in starting to build that around yourself and some of that infrastructure. And people will recognize that over time, and they'll want to get on board. And it's something I really admire about No Studios and what everyone's doing in Milwaukee, just because more and more now, right, you're able to cultivate that wherever you are. Like we see it sadly now because of COVID, but there's been a tremendous democratization, right, of like how you can make things and put it out into the world and, build a community of artists. So that's always worth cultivating.
Totally. I always love to say like, don't wait to ask. You don't have to ask permission. Just go do it now. Just get your voice out there. We have another question from Mark from Flexible Films, and he's working on a film about an actual event, but many books have been written about this event. What about any advice about how to proceed? I have a little story about this from a film from way back too, where there are a lot historical event film. I'd like to hear what you have to say first.
Yeah, I think I need to know a little more about the project to speak, specifically to the situation. But if there have been many books or films or documentaries have you about the same topic, it is always worth asking, like, what am I adding to that conversation and what makes this feel new or more relevant now? That is a relevant question, right? As you're trying to raise money or something to approach making a project. If you are asking about how do you secure rights, say to a book or to someone's life rights for a specific event, I would say an entertainment attorney is probably a really great person to talk to in terms of how to structure those arrangements. But it would always start with your access and to the subject or the material, and showing why and how you are the right person to make that project.
Right. And isn't it good to have some kind of IP around, if it's a live event, something just to lock it down and to tell everybody else you're moving forward with this?
Yeah, it can be a tremendous benefit. Absolutely. I mean, now more than ever, right? If you're reading Variety or Deadline, right, you're seeing announcements all the time for books or articles being optioned at, pretty high prices. I mean, the highest of all time. I mean, that's in part due to like the moment we are living in. But it's also because, right, it's IP and, specific ideas are much more saleable, right, than maybe than some sort of wide-ranging original idea from a younger creator. It immediately is a proof of concept for someone's work, for a story, and it's something that there's already an established audience for, right? Especially if there's some sort of sales track record. It's why you see these tremendous auctions for really popular books, or someone's estate of books, or a documentary being turned into a narrative film, or something like that, or a true story. So it can be really important to lock down some IP as part of that process. But you also want to be smart about that. If you don't need it, or if your story is tangentially related, maybe it's not worth spending that money at this time. And it would be better to spend that time making a proof of concept with those dollars or that time. So
that's true. Good. We have another question. Sam Kozel says, I have a TV pilot shot and edited. Do I need to have a manager to pitch to platforms such as Netflix, HBO, other streamers, Hulu, etc.?
Yeah. So, the answer is you don't, right? you can, if you have relationships with people at these organizations, you can pitch your projects whenever you want if they're going to take the meeting and listen to you, and it's set up in a way that feels conducive to your success. I think oftentimes a manager and agent has some of those relationships and can be really helpful, maybe knowing who exactly should be listening to your pitch, and can maybe more quickly facilitate those types of connections, or a situation where you are pitching a project. It's always challenging to sell something. It often comes down to how established you are in a certain space, who your team is, obviously the strength of your story, but there's a lot of factors that go into being able to sell something and get it off the ground. If you're speaking to someone's maybe submission policy and saying they don't take unsolicited submissions, that can get a little tricky, and it's why it's always better, to have someone make an introduction. It's also a wonderful reason why it's worth exploring, other pitch forums or markets for those types of things, whether it's at a festival, or something through your network or your university or what have you, to build those bridges and get your project in front of others and begin a conversation. If you have a brilliant project and you've written a bunch of shows or movies, people are going to pick up the phone and they're going to hear your ideas. If that's not the case, it can be a little harder.
It's hard, but you just got to keep doing it, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, look, it's people will even say for my clients, we're not interested in that. We don't want to hear the pitch, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
It does, yeah. We have a question this is interesting, from Christina Ward, who's an independent publisher, and she wants to know how to get her titles on a development radar. So I work in development, and one of my favorite things is I am reading all the time, trying to get something, find that kernel of an idea. But for you and for General, how does a publisher get her work to be seen by you and for production companies who are looking to option stuff for development?
That's a great question. I'm by no means an expert in that field at all. It's not something I necessarily do all the time. But I would say, the people I do talk to are book to film agents, literary agents, as well as film book scouts, at various networks or studios. So there are lots of people who specialize in taking graphic novels, comic books, novels, and building the marketplace surrounding their development for film or television. I would say those would probably be the best people to talk to about your projects.
Okay, that's great. And you talked about podcasts already. So our next question from Aaron Greer regarding podcasts. While there are many platforms for sharing podcasts, there aren't many festivals for podcasts. Or are there festivals? I guess there are some festivals. So if there's not these festivals or competitions or whatever for podcasts, where should a person take their podcast?
I would suggest you should publish it yourself. I think that's, in terms of what I said before. I think the point was, if it's better to tell your story and get it out there and promote it as much as you can, rather than maybe promote it as much as you can in the process of honing your craft and creating more and more, than worrying about necessarily what is the right way to do it.
Right.
I think that was kind of the point of that question. And podcast is a really wonderful way to do that, cheaply, put things out there. Certainly, if you feel like you have an opportunity, though, to really build an audience, you're going to want to talk to probably, a company that is a podcast distributor, or helping facilitate like the ad buys surrounding podcasts, right? That's what a lot of these companies do, that are the podcast networks essentially, and maybe that can really help your work. But there aren't any rules either, right? If you can find a brand or a local store, right, that would be willing to support your work and push it out on their social channels, or hand out a flyer or a business card, or like post a link on their website or something, that can be a really cool way to tap into an audience and find additional resources, right, for making your work. So it never hurts to think creatively about those things. But yeah, I would say the beauty of a podcast is you can just put it out there.
That's true. That's great. Now, it seems like things come in cycles and there's trends. So do you know what people are looking for now? I know I worked at a couple different places besides DreamWorks, but like our hit list of what we're looking for. What is in the zeitgeist right now of what people are looking for? Is there anything, any idea?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different from company to company, right? What moves the needle or what their needs might be. But in terms of some broader trends right now, I would say right there is like content that matters. I think content that has a purpose, that is coming from a unique point of view, and maybe is from a marginalized storyteller whose voice hasn't always had the chance to shine in the past. There's more of an audience, obviously, and there is value, as it should be, on these types of stories, like never before. I would say there is a kind of there's been a more international quality to content as a whole, as companies like Netflix and Hulu are have a global presence and are global buyers in how they distribute their content. And clearly those companies aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Allowing your work to resonate with many audiences, or be easily translatable, so to speak, or maybe possibly adaptable, right, in other places, is definitely something that is valuable, and your ability to connect to a wider group of people. So I would say those are obviously, I call them trends. I think they're amazing things that maybe weren't at the heart of, how content was bought and sold before, but I think they're on, everyone's mind right now. And are in terms of how people are thinking about buying content, and maybe and like the scope of a global audience like never before. It's worth keeping in mind in a very macro way.
Okay, I have one last live question to ask from Sam Kozel again. So he feels like there's a certain number of screenplays he has to have on hand to attract a manager. Is that true?
I don't think so. I think it's good to have, right, like I would recommend to any writer, you need to have, right, like a feature sample and a pilot sample, right? Like it's important to have at least one of both of those things. And ideally for a pilot, you probably want, if you have the time and are interested in writing more, it's good to think about developing a 60-minute piece and a 30-minute piece. If anything, it's great to make those things really strong. And I think, right, based on the merit of that work, or me seeing some promise, or you, right, that's what's going to spark a conversation for me. It's just like being attracted to the material. I mean, certainly, it's, if you have a meeting with someone and they've liked your work, it's probably a good idea to show up with the one or two ideas, right, that you want to talk about. Say that you're working on or thinking about, to continue to get them excited. the best way to start a conversation, right, with someone in the entertainment industry, once they've had a chance to check out your work and they, that they're, at least a fan enough to want to, sit down and have coffee or have a phone call or something, is, to start talking about other things you're working on, right? Like, people are constantly trying to find, new material, find collaborators, and it's good to be prepared. And be able to share something like that, just as much as it's important to know, right, like the questions you want to ask someone in terms of maybe what they are looking for, what does their process look like when they work with a writer or a director, how do they approach developing material or get involved, how do they think about collaborating with potential partners, knowing some of their credits, right, and ask, if you're a fan, like, it's okay to geek out. I do it all the time. Like, we all love movies and television shows. It's a reason we're trying to make them. So it's fun to be part of that discussion too. So I don't think there's necessarily, right, a minimum, but it's good to have, right, a really tight feature sample and a really tight pilot sample.
That's great. So we have some questions, some people who are going to come in and ask their questions. And the first person is Z. James. So Will, are you going to send it to Will? There we go.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. I'm well. How are you, Z?
Well, thank you. I'm Z. This is my lovely partner, Brett Schneider.
Hey, guys.
We have created, Brett has written several scripts, features, and television shows. During this quarantine, we started working on a half-hour sitcom. And our question is, once we've written our script, and are they still there? Oh. Once we've written our script and we feel ready to go out with it, what are our best next steps to take? Is it seeking representation, maybe pitching it to several friends that we know in the business? What's your suggestion?
Yeah, it's a great question. Every project has a unique path, right, and a different life. So it always depends on the kind of what the project is. But I would say, right, it's always great to, and what I always encourage my clients to do, right, is like, it's always good to test the waters with your work. Good to get some feedback and start to really take a moment, breathe, and say, right, is this achieving what we are hoping it is? And if your answer is yes, and you have refined the way that you like to talk about it, at that point, I'd say is the moment where you probably want to start thinking about your producer. Producer, right, is often the person who's going to be involved in the nuts and bolts of getting something made. They're hopefully the person with the right, leverage and connections to network or studio that will, treat this, that this project will be meaningful for. An agent or a manager can help facilitate some of those conversations. Perhaps you have some relationship on your own where it would make sense just to reach out. You have the type of relationship there. But I would say it's really a matter of, getting your pitch in order so that you know exactly how, you like to talk about the show and understand, right, where it fits into the landscape of what's happening on TV right now. So, if there are people you trust, whether it's a representative or producer, friends, right, that you can run that by and start to begin that dialogue with and hopefully build the momentum. I think that's where you start.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next we have Max Risman.
Hey, Alec. Hey, can you see me?
Yeah, what's up, Max?
Not much. How you doing?
In a minute.
I know it's been a while for sure. Hope you're doing well.
You too.
Yeah. So my question is basically, like, what qualities do you see in yourself that make you a good manager, and in what ways do you hope to evolve as a manager and continue to build on what you're able to do?
Well, it definitely starts with my good looks. I'd say that's the number one important thing. But besides that, I think it's a good question. I think you know, I love to fight for the people I am working with. I like to be in the trenches with them, right? To try to achieve success in their. I think that you know, it's really fun to have success and make a movie or a TV show or something, but to do it with someone that you are, you know, really linked to, have a relationship, you know what that means to them. Uh, I think it's just like all the more important, and what makes my job really fun. It's the relationships with my clients, just as much as I am excited about, you know, the work that we're, you know, trying to get going. It's also just them as people. So I think that's what's, you know, I love about the job, and I think you know, where I find motivation and hopefully success is, you know, the amount that I care about them and what we're trying to do. How do I hope to grow and evolve? I think it's being more effective, right? Like, how can I, you know, be a better partner and collaborator, and, you know, think more abstractly potentially about the growth of someone's career, and, you know, help that come to fruition even faster. So that is obviously achieved with success, right? And showing as a proof of concept, you know, with clients that you are able to do this and take project business, help grow someone's career, right? That attracts additional talent certainly to your orbit. But I think it also means, right, like asking yourself, what do I believe in? What do I want to watch? And how do I put myself in the position to best help, you know, make that happen? So, you know, there aren't too many hard skills required necessarily to work in entertainment, or at least ones you can't learn over time as you become more involved, right? You know, it's really just about, I think, refining my taste and trying to be a good person.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you, Max.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. A good one.
We're going to go to our next person, Megan Higley.
Hi.
Hey.
You can see me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know you touched on this a little bit before, like the difference between talent agents and literary managers. But as someone who is pursuing an acting career, but that definitely wants to pursue directing and producing down the line, I'm curious what your usual dealings are with actors, because I feel like nowadays more and more of them are producing their own projects and, you know, sort of delving into the world of directing as well. And I know I was on here the other day watching Regina King's conversation, and she was saying how even after she established herself as an actor, it was so hard for her to get people to take her seriously as a director. So I'm wondering what your role usually is in connecting people, and, you know, how you usually interact with actors that want to produce their own projects.
Yeah. I mean, this is especially common, I think, at least, you know, in the world of comedy. I work with a number of comedic writers and performers, right? Multi-hyphenates, where people are kind of, you know, often writing, starring, and possibly producing their own show, or maybe directing it. Speaking to some broad trends, right, in the industry, I'd say this is another like really important one, and something I encourage a lot of creators is like, how do you think about yourself not just as, right, a writer, director, and actor, but as a voice? How do you think of yourself as you know, a brand, or as, you know, if you were all of a sudden given a talk show, right? Like, what would you do with it? I think it's an interesting question in thinking about, you know, maybe how many of your talents kind of can overlap and intersect, or what you want to really specialize in and put forth in that platform. You know, I don't work with actors. I'm not often, you know, helping build, you know, their career in that capacity. But if you are interested in directing or producing, you should do it, right? Like, there's no reason you shouldn't go make a short, and just be behind the camera, whether, you know, you're acting in it or not. it's going to be invaluable in terms of your growth as a creative on both fronts. You're right. There may come a time where people are more interested in casting you in a role than having you direct that same movie. And at that point, right, it's about engineering a project so you can showcase that talent the way you want to. There's lots of ways to make a movie, one of which is, through independent financing. If you have a script you adore and you want to direct it and you control it, right, there's no reason you can't try to raise money to go make that movie the way you want to. There are certain challenges, obviously, with trying to raise money. It can be very challenging, but you have that power. So I think I don't necessarily have the best advice for someone growing their career as an actor and trying to branch out from there. But certainly, I think it is more possible than ever, and we're seeing more and more examples, right, of actors starting to direct films or writers being to direct films, or kind of doing both at the same time. You look at a show like Rami; it's like the perfect example of someone kind of doing it all, and really like making their show their own and owning their voice and wanting to say something with it as they're kind of making this really content that's incredibly varied in terms of genre and scope. So I think it's about building like support around you to go do that, and making sure you actually feel like you're prepared to go direct the movie you want to.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that's our last of our people lined up, but just a couple things to wrap this up. So the people who are on here today, are they, what's the etiquette? What's the rules? They might not know. Like, can they reach out to you? What?
I am accessible. I pride myself on it. Feel free to reach out. Right. Sometimes I'm busy and I may be a little slow to respond, but I will certainly, get back to you. And I will be honest with you in terms of my interest maybe in your work or how I can be helpful. I definitely like to work with a wide range of people, across the world in terms of, what they're doing. But that isn't to say, right, and I've said it here, there are definitely some things I'm more specialized in and better at, and that's working with writers or writer directors who are often in the like genre space, maybe the elevated comedic space. It doesn't say I don't adore other things, but that's a lot of who I work with. So, that's my long-winded way of saying Cinetic is home for filmmakers, and we want to be as helpful as we can be.
That's great. And one last follow-up question to that. So, I asked it earlier, but are you looking for anything? I know writers, directors, genre, but recapping, anything you're looking for right now, any specifics that, if someone has something, what's going to, be your thing to open up the email and say, ooh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a good question and always a relevant one. I don't think about my relationships with potential clients or projects that way, because I think, as you pointed out, Suzanne, right, there's often these things come and go in cycles and waves. Mm-hmm. And in a world where, the needs of a Netflix or Hulu are more and more determined by, the algorithm behind them in terms of plugging holes in their content or what audience they're trying to serve. I'm not in a position to guess as to what that would be. I certainly do my best to discern it and talk to people at these companies to understand. But more than anything, right, I think it's about making any given creator's project as everything they want it to be and make sure it is saying, what they want it to say. I begin any conversation of giving notes with someone, or I try to, at least if it's not a given, by asking, right, what are you trying to do with this project? What do you hope it says? And through that process of listening and that conversation, right? Like I can say, well, in my opinion, from looking at this, I think you're missing the mark here, here, and here. So I wish I had the secret potion or the magic key, but I would encourage everyone just to keep developing their voices, continue to, make work, and be your best advocate.
I think that's a great thing to end on, and thank you so much. And this was a great chat. I hope everybody learned a lot. I did. And I think I'm going to throw it back to Matthew right now.
All right, fantastic. This was cool. I like it. Awesome. They always are, right? Thank you so much, Alec and Suzanne. This was really great. Thanks also to Z and Brett and Max and Megan. Those were really poignant, really good centered questions to really drive home some like personal stuff, because this is like the nitty gritty, right? It's not always like the follow your dreams and you'll get there stuff. It's here's how. Have a dream. Here's how to use it. I love it. I'm gonna say goodbye to our guests now. Z, Max, and Megan, Alec, and Suzanne. Thank you both so much. I just have a few closing notes just to wrap us all up here, and we will go have some dinner, chill out. Look forward to Friday tomorrow. Same place as we were yesterday and today.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all so much. We will say goodbye to Alec and Suzanne now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Fantastic. Oh, this was so cool. Our final event for the week, speaking of Friday, is a No Studios Unplugged performance by Q the Sun. That's going to be streamed live from No Studios. He's going to do it live here, and we'll live stream it to your home on our YouTube channel and at nostudios.com. Again, that's at 6 p.m. tomorrow, Friday, July 17th. The mission of No Studios is to socialize with purpose. Members of No Studios have the ability to engage and collaborate with folks like Alec and Suzanne through our online members-only social platform. So we have a social platform just for our members where you can talk to folks like Alec and Suzanne and each other and collaborate and make good art and change the world. To learn more about membership at No Studios, our online interviews, skill shares, and performances, Cafe No, we do have a cafe on site here if you are in the Milwaukee area, and our community support and social justice initiatives, the other pillar of No Studios. Please check all that out at nostudios.com. That's all from us for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you next time.